So I was out of town when I heard, and I didn't want to get on to start saying things. um, he lived to be 94. That's a full life. Okay. Um, I can reminisce about the things that when I was young, before I realized I could of uh, cassette tapes and records, and that's how I got to learn about Clive Davis. Okay, I'm sure you're gonna hear all kinds of interesting stories about Clive Davis. And when I was out of town, I was actually taking care of some family business, and um, my parents, had one of those morning shows on, and that's kind of like I already knew, but then the next morning, like the morning shows had a tribute on, and even me, like the way, like, okay, I already knew. I'm just trying to find, like, I'm not saying he's evil or anything like that, but he's definitely a gatekeeper. But that morning show tried to make it seem like he was so revolutionary, and he discovered and allowed for so many artists to express themselves and stuff. And you know, there's a thing out there where you express half truths. So he was revolutionary, quote unquote, but then he was still a gatekeeper. So there's some half truths being told in those morning shows or whatever. So they just mentioned, like, the the more famous, internationally, worldwide beloved artist that he is attached to, and that kind of thing. So, but then there's others who had problematic relationships with him, some serious problematic relationships. And oops, all right, I'm gonna go. Oh my gosh! That was weird. um, so yeah, I just wanted to mention that he could be the last of his kind. Okay, that's my take on this right now. Like, he, and I say could be because a lot of young people are still attached to the idea that, oh, I've got to get signed, I got to get signed, I got to get on these singing shows, and I got to get signed, and this and that. You don't have to get signed. You can sign yourself. um, so I was kind of reminiscing on my drive back to the city, and maybe journaling slash podcasting. I don't know. I basically retold a part of my life story along with my family's life story, and things like that. And I was also thinking in the last week or so before Clive passed, how music and history aligned themselves. So I was thinking about, like, a lot of the music that he was known for um, discovering, and what was happening in the world at that time. And I'm thinking mostly 70s and 80s. And then there's the 90s, you know. But what I've come to realize is that Yeah, that era is pretty much gone. You know, for better or for worse, whatever your idea, whatever you think about him, um, that era of a record producer, executive, making or breaking your life is potentially gone. And you're not a has been or a washout, but if you hit 30 years old and you haven't made it, I mean, there's whole, it makes me, that's what I think I was thinking on. I was like, how is it that other industries in the world, you don't become you don't get to see the peak of your career until you're at least in your 30s and 40s, but yet they basically were taking advantage of young people, vulnerable people, dangling carrots in front of them, these record execs, and having them sign deals that they're linked into for 30 years, literally, if you want to think about publishing kind of thing. And that doesn't have to be anymore. And I'm grateful for that. So, I think we have to reimagine what music industry is. Like, you don't stop, your voice doesn't stop just because you turn 30 years old or 40 years old or 50 years old. Your voice doesn't stop. And if you're into, let's see, opera, country music, the blues, all these people have longevity. But yet, for some reason, and I think it's changing, rock music, hip hop still has a little bit of an issue. We're still working on it, hip hop people, where it's not about age. You don't get credibility just because you're under 30. Especially if hip hop's only 50 years old, y'all. So that's the other thing. It's like it just turned 50. It's like 51, 52 or 3 or something, like it just, you know. So, yeah, I just kind of want to make mention that, there was a time where one person and their vision or their marketing strategies, I did hear about, apparently, Mr. Davis commissioned Harvard to do some research on marketing Black music. Okay, because that's what I'm talking about, where it's like, was he inclusive, or was he looking for an angle to make more money? Okay, you be the judge. But yeah, he commissioned Harvard to do a study on it. Okay, and I kind of want to look into that, so I don't know. But just know that other people making your life choices about your career in the arts is done. There are no more gatekeepers. Think of it that way.